Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier and this is the Piracy Show. Now, of course, yesterday's show we kind of went off into the topic of can't you steal ships? It's such a big deal. Not really. I mean, it is and it isn't. I mean, I can certainly understand some people want to keep ships as trophies, and there have been threads out there, people saying, "Oh, let's all get together, steal a Bengal carrier, and make it the pirate mothership," and I mean, those kind of ideas, they kind of reveal themselves. It's like you have to look at piracy logically. Always. You have to think about, having that 1 degree of removal from your service-oriented ships and your combat-oriented ships. So where the combat-oriented ships go in and do a thing, the service-oriented ships clean up that thing. Now, I mean, it can be NPC vessels, it can be, it can be player vessels, depending on who you're attacking. I guess that more is a question of your personal style and your willingness to take on the additional risk of an NPC doesn't hold a grudge, a player does, and that could come back to bite you in the ass at an inopportune moment later on. So that's one thing to consider. But I wanted to kind of get back on track, and we were talking about the Reclaimer, and can the Reclaimer fight? Should the Reclaimer be able to fight? Would it be a viable ship for a direct confrontation? No. It shouldn't be able to, and truthfully, it can't. Now that's probably going to shock some people that I would outright say that, but you have to remember, you can't just look at one individual ship. You have to look at the entire buffet of ships that are available to us. And there's one ship in particular, and one ship that's upcoming very soon, that I want to talk about, and that is the Retaliator and the Eclipse, the two bombers, the two torpedo bombers. Those things could probably wreck a Reclaimer's day, and a Reclaimer probably wouldn't have that much of a response to that type of attack. Now, if you think about, say, let's look at this. The ESB, Empire Strikes Back, era Rebel fleet, right? Now, these are a lot of non-combat oriented ships, making up the Rebel combat fleet in the Star Wars universe at that time. Now, of course, you move into Return of the Jedi, you see a lot more combat oriented vessels in that fleet. But it does kind of lend the idea of legitimacy to a non-strictly combat ship fulfilling a combat role. I mean, certainly, even in our own history, that has existed. Many of the famous pirate ships of, the golden age of piracy down in the Caribbean were more or less refitted merchantmen used to prey on other merchantmen. These guys were all hauling, flour or gold or whatever, and the pirates, instead of hauling all that stuff, were hauling cannons and guns, and that's kind of how that contest got decided. So, I mean, there is a certain kind of idea behind it. There is a certain truth behind a non-combat ship fulfilling a combat role. But in the Star Citizen universe, all of a sudden you're dealing with a lot of rules, and you have to watch out for torpedoes. You have to be careful of these things and those things. And so you just can't say, well, I'm going to take a Reclaimer and I'm just going to make it a battleship. just going to make it a warship. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying that for someone to do it and do it successfully, you're really going to have to be on top of your game. I'm like anybody can sit here and generate 100 scenarios where Reclaimer could be a viable combat ship. Anyone could do that. I mean, we could sit here and just say, oh man, remember in Rogue One when they grabbed, when that Hammerhead, whatever, I don't know, what was it, a cruiser, Corvette, whatever they were calling it in that episode of the film, when it crashes into the disabled Star Destroyer and pushes it into the other one, and you get this big moment and the music lifts up and everyone's like, wow, that's so awesome. And you know, you think, well, shit, a reclaimer can do that. I mean, imagine taking a reclaimer and grabbing onto somebody's Idris, then ramming that Idris into a javelin and knocking the bridge off, and we all, wow, and that was awesome. And, you know, there's probably more than a few people who've kind of thought up that scenario, but in order to get to that point, a lot of things have to happen along the way, and the reclaimer isn't exactly equipped to directly survive a confrontation with those ships, right? It's meant for a different purpose. It might be strong and survivable, but does it really have the firepower to outlast and, you know, to hang in to a fight with a javelin or an Idris for a prolonged period of time for that situation to occur? No, I don't think that it ever will. But I do feel that they can contribute. I feel that they can have a part to play. I mean, if you're looking at a battle where your fighters have gone in, they're attacking the enemy fleet, be it player, be it NPC, whatever, and you have certain non-combat oriented ships hanging way back and firing shots at the enemy fleet who is otherwise occupied with more combat oriented vessels, yes, they can contribute. And I think that that would be fun and interesting gameplay, and I certainly wouldn't shy away from it. But once again, that's got to be a reclaimer captain or an overall fleet commander that are on top of their game, that are, you know, someone who isn't reacting to the situation, someone who is dictating the pace of events in that battle. That person, the person who is in that command of that situation, would be the person that I would trust to bring a reclaimer into the fight. So I'm sure that there are going to be certain exceptional situations and certain exceptional individuals that are going to be able to take the reclaimer and do just about anything with it. I'm sure that there are. And of course, during the alpha is the time to test these things, is to try out any and every possible configuration to make ridiculous amounts of alpha UEC and then spend it on ridiculous ship setups to see that, you know, once we get to a point where things count, where the money is quote unquote real, we know exactly what to go for. It's a good idea to kind of, you know, to look at things and say, yeah, probably not going to be a combat vessel. But it's also a good idea to ask the question and see if maybe it is not possible. And of course, once we get a lot of these secondary systems and a lot of the more interesting gadgets within the Star Citizen universe working and fully fleshed out, we might actually see another side to the Reclaimer that we just don't see at this time. Now, in the end, when we're talking about, like, say, using a Reclaimer as a pirate capital ship, you know, I don't think so on a number of levels. I think that pirate capital ships are day in, day out not a good idea. Specific scenario, limited situations, a fantastic idea. That's kind of where I fall on that argument. You know, as I play around in the universe and as I kind of look at the things as they're kind of taking shape, as they're coming together, you know, yesterday when I was talking about, you know, taking a ship with its cargo when it's, you know, taking off from a space station and causing it to crash, and then going in after the fact in with a degree of removal that gives you plausible deniability that you actually did it, and salvaging the ship, because I would assume that we're operating under maritime salvage rules. You find an abandoned ship with a cargo crash somewhere, that now belongs to you. So I'm assuming that those are the rules that we're going to follow. But when you think about pirate ships, and certainly, you know, we've discussed different things, and we've looked at, oh, what would happen if Drake made a capital, or this, that, and the other thing. For most pirate operations, I think ships like the Buccaneer, ships like the Cutlass and the Caterpillar, I think they are really the ideal. And I don't think that they're the ideal in terms of they can fight anything and they can fight off any enemy. But
for the purpose that they're built, I mean, there are various little quibbles with each ship, certainly, but for the purpose that they're built, they're actually kind of in an ideal space. They're fast, they're small, they're not very remarkable ships compared to some of the bigger ones out there. They're made for getting in, doing the job, and then getting out or escaping if things go awry. And as such, I think that those are really ideal pirate ships. Certainly, I mean, with a certain layer of removal, other ships can be used for piracy. Obviously, the Reclaimer, other ships like that, the Hammerhead can be used as well. And I guess we're going to find out in the not too distant future about that. But realistically, like a successful pirate operation, and it's always interesting to watch what people say about piracy, especially on the forums. People say, "Oh, well, if the pirates do this, then I'm going to do that." And then what happens when, all the UEE comes down on top of you? And chances are, like, piracy in the hands of dedicated players who are in that profession because they like the idea of that profession and they want to succeed in the universe in that profession, those players are probably going to work the piracy system in such a way that your only idea that piracy is occurring around you is you might be leaving from, say, Hicks Research Post or Shubin or R-Corp or wherever, and you might see, different cargo ships, NPC cargo ships, player cargo ships taking off and leaving behind you, a nice trail on the radar screen, and then all of a sudden, perhaps one of those blips just drops off the screen. And it just goes boop, and it's gone. And oh, that's interesting, but I got to get to Olisar, I got to sell my shit, I got to make more money, boom, 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 boom. And you don't even give it a second thought, not realizing that ship was a Starfarer or a Caterpillar or a Hull C or whatever that just winked out of existence, and you never gave it a second thought. The most successful pirates are probably going to be aiming to commit operations like that and not be all so visible. I mean, there's always this thing where it's like, what happens when people see you do this, and what happens when people see you do that? And it's just like, what happens when the pirate is smart enough to make sure nobody sees him do anything, right? Now, of course, a lot of people are going to say, why should we allow any of this? Why should we even allow piracy in the game? Well, piracy adds a certain flavor. It adds a certain tension. It adds a certain fun to the game. I think it adds a lot of personality to the game, and it creates a much more real and a much more, immersive environment, to have that kind of dark side to the light side in this universe. I think that it's a very good thing. I think that it's a very bold choice to have in the game, and it's certainly something that I can't wait to experience. But if you look even at this situation, I'm going around here, and in the beginning of this video, I'm doing pirate missions, and I'm picking up drugs, and I'm selling drugs, and I'm making a little bit of money. But one trip to Hicks Research Post on Chelon fills my cutlass with medical supplies, and I am going to make a ridiculous amount of money. I mean, having these types of things come online for pirates gives pirates the potential to earn that kind of money as well, or something close to it, and say, hey, you know what, now I can actually experience pirate gameplay without missing out too much. And some people say, well, you're a criminal, so you should miss out. But think about it. We're going into a universe where 90% of the population is going to be NPCs. That's ships, that's people, all of that. So you're going to have these automated cargo ships running around. Now, an automated cargo ship isn't going to hold a grudge for months if you blow it up. A player might. So if these facilities are there and some NPC cargo ships disappear off the map, pirates get to go and they get to do their thing and they get to have fun. And there is a price, there is a cost, there is work that they have to do to erase negative security rating and all of that, but they still get to enjoy it, and it's still rewarding gameplay. That you might see a lot of pirates veer off into that, instead of just going like, oh, well, we've we've got nothing to do to make money, but I happen to know that players are flying around with hundreds of thousands worth of medical supplies in their cutlasses, so let's hijack them as they're leaving from the research posts. Instead of saying, hey, let's wait until the NPC ship flies out of there fully loaded with medical supplies, and then we'll take that ship, and it'll be probably a little bit easier for us. We'll still make a fair chunk of money, and we don't have to worry about someone coming after us or holding a grudge or putting up a bounty on us, that sort of thing. So I think that having these kind of facilities would kind of mitigate the risk of that some people might perceive having piracy in the persistent universe. I think it's something that works to everybody's benefit. The way the economy is built now and the way the pirate economy is built now, it incentivizes player versus player attacks, right? It basically says, hey, if you want big rewards as a pirate, right now the big rewards with all the systems as they are moving forward would be shooting down other players with big cargo ships trying to make big hauls. That's where you would get your biggest money from as a pirate. But bringing in NPC ships and things like that, it kind of takes that pressure off of the players and puts it onto the NPCs, where a lot of people would probably argue it belongs. And without those kind of outlets in the first place for pirates to make that kind of money, then the idea of piracy itself, it doesn't make sense in the game. If all you can do is earn maybe 150, 155 UEC per mission, or you can make so much more, so much easier, so much faster hauling medical supplies. In a universe like that, then there's no reason to be a pirate really anymore. And I think that we would all be the poorer for the result. I mean, the experience would be far less exciting and far less rewarding without that pirate element there. Anyways, that's the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.